Well, let's go ahead and begin. I want to thank everybody for showing up today and joining the webinar room for our presentation, The 5 Mistakes Entrepreneurs Make in Selling Their Business. Today we have with us from Northside Advisors, we have Fritz Abel and Michael Rosenberg, who will be leading us through the slides here in a few moments. Before we begin, my name is Hall Martin. I'm with the Texas Entrepreneur Networks. I'm the director, and we're running a series of webinars on different topics related to entrepreneurship, and we're glad you guys could join us here today. I will save a copy of these slides in PDF form, and we'll send you that at the end of the presentation or after the presentation today, along with a link to the recording. So you'll get a copy of the slides and the recording later this evening. What we'd like to do now is go ahead and move into the slides, like for Michael and Fritz to introduce themselves. And we would like to go through the slides first and then save questions till the end. You have a questions box on your screen as we go through the presentation. If you have a question, go ahead and type it in as it comes to you. And at the end, we'll open that box up and go through and we'll see if we can answer all of the questions that you guys may have. And then, of course, we'd be glad to dialogue with you afterwards by phone or email if there are any questions you'd like to ask offline. The contact details will be in there at the end of the presentation as well. So with that, let's go ahead and move into it. As we said before, my name is Hall Martin. I'm with the Texas Entrepreneur Network, and we have today the 5 common mistakes entrepreneurs make when selling their company. And at this point, I'd like to pass it over to Fritz and Michael to introduce themselves and to lead us through the presentation. Michael?
All right. Thank you, Hall. This is Michael Rosenberg with Northside Advisors, and I'm here with Fritz Abel, my partner. Just a quick snapshot of who we are. We run Northside Advisors, which is a boutique investment banking firm focused on providing M&A, which is sell-side and buy-side advisory services, as well as capital raising and corporate development services to emerging to middle-market companies. We tend to focus on information technology and new media companies, but we do have a pretty vast experience across many sectors. We've completed many transactions together in excess of 50 collectively. We're based in both New York and Austin. We find that our experience puts us in a unique position in that we've been both on the buy side and sell side on many transactions. On the buy side, we've actually both been in a principal position as well as in an advisory position, and on the sell side, we typically have acted as in an advisory capacity. So we'd love to talk to you a little bit more about some of the issues or the common mistakes that we find that companies make or that sellers make when they're looking to sell their business. If you can go to the next slide, Hall, please. All right, so jumping right into it, first of all, the first mistake that we've seen that companies or that sellers make is that they go through the process alone. And when I say alone, typically it'll be themselves and quite possibly the attorney that they've worked with for many years, but doesn't necessarily have the appropriate experience. And having been on the buy side on numerous occasions in dealing with a seller of that nature, the process tends not to go smoothly just because of the inexperience. Just because you know your business really well doesn't necessarily work when you're actually trying to sell the business. Next bullet. The second item that we find quite frequently is that the seller will have unrealistic expectations of a sale process, whether that be in terms of the valuation that they expect or whether it be in terms of the process itself. It's a very, very arduous process. It can be enjoyable, and ultimately the end result is hopefully the most enjoyable aspect of it. But at the same time, it's going to be a very challenging, and ultimately it's the most important transaction of a seller's lifetime. So there's a lot of stress that goes along with it. Next bullet. Third is, and it goes along with number one oftentimes, which is poor preparation of due diligence documents. And we'll talk more about this, but it's very important to maintain a good set of due diligence documents, whether they be financial, legal, technical, along the way, because any buyer is going to want to see all of these things at some point along the way, and the way you present your documents actually says a lot about how seriously you're taking the process, and it says a lot about you as a management team. Next, please. Poor qualification of buyers, and what that means is who do you let take a look at your business? There's lots of people out there that are interested in taking a look at your business but might not be serious buyers, or might not be the kinds of buyers that you're interested to have buy your business, depending on what your ultimate goal is besides just selling the business. So you want to really take a good hard look at who is evaluating your business, so that first of all your time is well spent, and secondly that you achieve the ultimate goal, which is to sell your business to the right person. And the last bullet, a lot of sellers have a very what I would say tunnel vision view of their business. You know, they've lived it. They eat, drink, and sleep their business every day. So they have a very different perspective oftentimes of what their business is was going to be valued by someone else, or how it's going to be perceived by the outside world, whether it be a seller or an investor or a customer or partner. So again, it's very important to take a perspective of all parties when you're going to sell your business. All right, so next slide, please. So hitting on the first point in terms of bringing on the right team, who do you want to have help? Obviously, an attorney is critical in this process, and you want to make sure that you have an attorney that really understands the M&A process. Lots of companies have attorneys that work with them on contract work, whether it be with customer work, customer contracts or vendor contracts, etc., but that don't have experience necessarily in doing M&A transactions. You want your lawyer to understand what reps and warranties are, and what the market is for the reps and warranties. You want a lawyer who's going to understand the labor issues, and if you have intellectual property, how do you manage the transfer of intellectual property in a transaction? If you've got environmental conditions, if you have a factory, if you just live in it, if you just have an office space, you could be subject to environmental issues without even knowing it. So you want to have the right attorney who can help you out, and of course in certain circumstances you want to bring an attorney in to handle tax considerations. At the end of the day, the best attorneys that I've dealt with really don't know it all, but they understand what they know and what they don't know, and when to bring in an expert. Next bullet. Another professional that you want to have at your side, and you don't necessarily need to engage them right away, but you want to make sure that you have a good accountant who really understands M&A transactions, someone who has experience with the tax codes, who can guide you on how to best position your company for a sale, because you want to make sure that your tax liabilities are mitigated in a transaction. And also you want to have someone who can put together some good financial statements for you. If you have a CFO or a controller on staff, this might become a little less relevant for you. But when you're selling your business, a buyer may look for audited or some level of qualification when they're about to buy your business on your financial statements. Next bullet. And of course, no transaction can be as successful without the investment banker. I say that with a smile on my face, but at the same time, an investment banker adds a lot to the process. Typically, for a sell side, the investment banker is going to manage the overall process. What is that? They're going to understand and research the buyer universe for you. They're going to do the buyer outreach, and they're going to qualify buyers for you. They're going to take initial meetings for you. They're going to help you value your business. What is your business worth? And it's going to be worth different things to different people. They're going to block and tackle for you on the data room. They're going to assess offers for you, and it's going to be together with you and your attorney, because obviously this is a collaborative effort. But you want an investment banker who is going to really run the process for you, primarily, A, to give yourself peace of mind that you're going to get the best process, but B, you also need to run your business, because it's very important that you continue to succeed in your business while this process is being run, because the buyer is going to be looking to what is happening now and what they envision for the near future. They're not going to look back very far. So you want to make sure that you're able to keep your eye on the ball. And finally, they're going to help you, the investment banker is going to help you negotiate the purchase agreement and come up with the best offer, because they should understand what is market, not only in terms of the financial terms, but all the various qualitative terms as well. Next bullet. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the sale process itself. I think the question we get asked most frequently is, how long is this process going to take? And I think that it surprises people in varying degrees. Next bullet. Process can take up to 1 year. Typically, we'll see a process take between 8 to 10 months. It can take a little less, and it can take more, as I had said, up to a year. It happens less when you've maybe already are being solicited by a potential acquirer, and then the process can move along a lot quicker. But if you're starting from scratch, you can usually expect it to take 8 to 10 months. So you really want to plan for that. Next bullet. We've broken down the M&A process into two pieces. We'll call it the deal assessment and then the deal execution. Next. And in terms of timing, the deal assessment phase will take approximately 8 to 13 weeks, and the deal execution phase, which is the when you're going out to market, takes about 25 to 40 weeks. Next, please. So what is the deal assessment overview? And if you can push down the next few bullets underneath that. So you want to create market-ready financials. And what are market-ready financials? These are financials that can stand on their own, and that you're going to eliminate personal costs. You're going to eliminate one-time expenses. You're going to make financial statements that a potential buyer can look at and really understand and get a good idea of your business. You're also going to do in-depth research of the company, and right now we're really talking from an investment banker's perspective. The banker is going to do a lot of research on the company. They should have a good understanding of the industry and the market, but they're going to do a fuller industry and market evaluation. And then they're going to look at the different buyers. Okay, they're going to identify the buyer universe, and they're going to break it down and understand what are the benefits to combining your business with another buyer. And that we're talking about whether that's a strategic buyer, meaning another corporate buyer, or a financial buyer, someone who's looking to just acquire you for the cash flow. Next. The deal execution. So this is the point in time where the banker, together with the client, they're going to create what we call buyer-friendly marketing materials. And that's typically two sets of materials depending on the situation. One would be what we call a teaser, which is a 1- or 2-page document. It's fairly innocuous. It's anonymous to some degree, depending on the situation, where you send it out to a potential party that you think might be interested, that doesn't tend to tell you who the company is, but gives you enough information to wet the buyer's whistle, get them to understand whether they want to take a harder look. The next set of documents that we put together is a detailed, what I'll call investment memorandum, or a PowerPoint presentation, which really goes into detail about the business, the market, the opportunity, the financials, the technology, the organization, etc. So really something that someone on their own can take a look at and get a really good idea of the business, and then be able to follow up with intelligent questions. As part of the execution overview, again, we're going to go out, a banker's going to go out, and they're going to solicit and distribute the marketing materials. They're going to follow up with the company for initial meetings, and then depending on the level of interest, they would follow up with management presentations and visits. Typically today, companies, historically I would say, companies when they did management meetings, they were always in person, but with the advent of the technology today, it's not necessary. There are always some companies just need to feel and touch people really early on in the process. So you try to accommodate that when appropriate, but most of these management meetings are taking place over WebEx like this. Once you've established that folks are interested and they've had these management presentations, you may open up a more detailed due diligence room with these interested parties. And again, these are done virtually, electronically. Once you go through that process with some follow-ups, you set a point in time where you're going to look to solicit final offers from any interested buyers. Once you get those offers, the seller, together with his advisors, they'll conduct the negotiations. They'll pick one buyer. Typically, it's one buyer. There are times where you may go in parallel with 2, possibly 3 buyers, but it's a very challenging thing to manage. But it happens, and I've been part of that. But assuming you get to a point where you pick one buyer, you negotiate what's called an LOI, a letter of intent, which really is a non-binding agreement that has all the terms, the material terms that you would expect to see in an agreement, and those are usually signed and agreed to. After that, you will structure the deal and close the transaction. Usually the timing of when you get an LOI to when you close the transaction is somewhere between 45 and 75 days, depending on the transaction. Next slide, thanks. Preparing the data room. So again, going back to the point about an organized data room, this is the most important piece, because this is where the buyer really gets to dig in and understand your business really well. If you have a good set of documents, it does 2 things, as I had said earlier. One is it makes life easier for you and the buyer, which ultimately makes for an easier transaction. And 2, a good set of documents says a lot about you and your management team, that we are very well organized. It's like when you go to look at a house, if you see that some things are not kept up well, you start to wonder about what else is underneath the covers that aren't working all that well, and it's totally related to relevant to a data room. So what goes into a data room? Next bullet. The primary information that goes in there, financial information. It's detailed P&Ls, profit and loss statements, balance sheets. You should have complete tax returns in there. You want to have your business forecasts, and typically companies want to see what are you looking at for the next year. And oh, by the way, show us last year's forecast and show us how you did on an actual to forecasted basis. Let's see all your assumptions so that we can go back and do our own analysis. Other items, they're going to look for your PP&E, your property, plant, and equipment, your furnitures and fixtures. If depending on your business, they're going to look for your inventories. They are going to want to go through and make sure that your inventories are good, that they're not obsolete, that you've been marking them down appropriately. They want to look at your receivables. They want to understand that your receivables are not 180 days out, unless that's typical for your business. And again, they're going to want to look at your property arrangements, whether you own the property, and they're going to look for appraisals, or if it's a lease, they're going to want to see the agreement, understand what it takes or how long the lease is for, because it's possible that they may want to combine you into another location, etc. So they're going to want to understand what their obligations are. Next slide. Thanks. And as you go further into the diligence process, there's a number of things as you get more comfortable with the buyer that you're going to want to release to them that they're going to want to see. Insurance policies, employment agreements, tend to be very sensitive, so they're exposed to the buyers further along in the process when you feel that there's a transaction imminent. Same thing with customer contracts. Same things with sales pipeline. Those can be very sensitive items, but at the same time, a company or a buyer, potential buyer, wants to make sure that you've got a very full pipeline, and they want to understand that the pipeline you've got makes sense and that it's a valid pipeline. They're going to want to see your technical documentation. Oops, sorry, thanks. You're going to want to see your technical documentation if you've got a lot of IP. If you're a technology business, they're going to want to look at your marketing materials and equipment leases, and again, they're going to want to see your organizational structure and the functions and the benefit plans. Next, thanks. So how do you qualify a buyer? Takes initial preliminary research. Investment bankers will have two ways to do that. Both is experience in the industry, as well as doing general research through various paid research methods, Capital IQ, things of that nature, Bloomberg, etc. But most of the time, a good investment banker will have a lot of the relationships with the folks that you want to reach out to. So a lot of the qualification can be simplified with an investment banker. But again, when you're looking at a buyer, you want to understand what is their experience in the industry. Do they understand the market? Are they someone who's just fishing, or are they really willing, or are they really interested to buy? And if are you gonna have to spend a lot of time with them, or are you going to be able to explain the business to them quickly and the benefits of owning the business, or do they already know you really well? What are their financial resources? There's a lot of companies out there that want to make acquisitions, but they don't have the money. And I've seen situations where you go, the whole 9 yards with them, and at some point in time you realize, you know what, they've got to go out and now raise the capital to acquire your business. That's not very attractive, especially when you have potentially another offer from someone else who maybe it's a little bit less, but you know that they've got the financial resources, and that may be a more attractive opportunity for you. And again, the willingness of a potential party to move through the process and really dig into the diligence, and that goes into the next two bullets, which signing a non-disclosure agreement. Companies try not to just sign NDAs for the sake of it, even for fishing expeditions. They'd like to do things without NDAs. When you get them to sign an NDA, there's at least a sense that someone is going to be interested enough to open the covers and not just do it for their own validation. And again, deeper due diligence, both sides. You're going to do the due diligence on them, as well as vice versa. So as you go through the process, you're going to learn more about what the company's strategy is and how they want to work with your company on a go-forward basis, and you'll learn whether that's a business you want to be part of, and again, how serious they are in moving forward with a transaction. Next, thanks. Okay, so putting yourself in the buyer's shoes, and that relates to the last point that I had brought up initially, which is looking at the business through your eyes, but you need to really look at it through a potential buyer's eyes. So your business is going to offer different value to different buyers, right? If you've got a strategic buyer, and we'll go into this in a moment, but you've got strategic buyers and you've got financial buyers. A strategic buyer, how are they going to view your business versus a financial buyer who's going to possibly just look at it from a cash flow perspective? A strategic buyer is going to look at your business for what it can do for their own business, or what can they do for your business. So that's how they view your business. And what is or what is not motivating the buyer? Why do they want your business? A different buyer is going to see different value in your business. and you need to understand and assess that, and ultimately they become the market. So while your perception of your business is the most important thing, you cannot undermine the value that the potential buyer universe is putting on your business. You also want to understand, what is the buyer's diligence and internal approval process. The person you're dealing with within a corporation, for example, may have a tremendous amount of diligence, a tremendous threshold of diligence and internal approvals they need to make in order to go through in order to acquire a business. If that's the case, there's going to be a value threshold that they're going to have to get comfortable with for them to put the effort in. Meaning, if you think your business is worth 2 times more than they do, well, they're going to potentially, assuming the work to get to the point of buying your business is just too stressful internally, they're going to walk away, even if they think that there may be some point in the middle that you ultimately may reach. You can go to the next bullet. So going back, and if you can hit the next bullet as well. Thanks. So the 2 basic types of buyers: economic buyers. They're the financial buyers of the world. They're the PE firms, they're family funds, things you want to look at from their perspective in terms of how they're going to value you. Where are they in their investment cycle? Are they early on where they're very eager to spend the money, or are they at the end of their investment cycle where they're not necessarily so eager, they're looking for opportunistic situations? Are they knowledgeable about your space? Are they just really looking for value plays, or are they looking to really buy something that they can grow and invest money into? They're going to each type of buyer there is going to value your business differently. And then a strategic buyer, a corporation, you want to understand what is the best entry point within the organization, because within the organization there's going to be different constituencies who are going to look at your business differently. And you need to understand the right person to be speaking to, because at that you want to speak to the person who's going to value your business value most. How is the buyer valued in the market? You're going to want to understand, are they trading at a premium to market, or are they trading at a discount? If they're trading at a premium, well, they can afford to pay more for you, and they may see bringing your business on as a better opportunity than a potential buyer who's trading at a discount in the market. And again, there's a lot of companies out there that are premium buyers that are willing to spend money because they understand that the value your company brings to their organization is gonna jumpstart or accelerate once it becomes part. Where there's lots of companies out there that are just looking for bargains, and they're looking to buy companies on the cheap. So there's a big range of buyers out there, and ultimately you need to think about where they're coming from. Next slide. So closing thoughts. Obviously the M&A markets are changing, so you need to be very flexible. If you're really interested to sell your business, you need to be flexible in your thinking. You need to be ready to move quickly at some points, and you need to be ready to pull your foot off the gas at others. We're obviously in a very challenging climate where literally in 1 week you can see 15 deals go off, and then for the next 3 months you'll only see 1 or 2 deals go off. It's very hard. I get the question all the time, how is the market doing? Well, it changes. It's moving left and right and up and down on a fairly regular basis. So you really need to be patient, and you need to really move through the process on a consistent basis, and not try to be too reactive to how the market appears to be behaving. Trust of an advisor is key. Whether it be your attorney or your accountant or your investment banker, you're going through the most important transaction likely in your lifetime. This is a company you probably have put your blood, sweat, and tears into. You want to have people with you who you can really trust, and who are really incented in the same manner that you are. Process can be satisfying if handled properly. My partners and I, we love this business. We get excited about it every day. We think that there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of companies that are buying. There's a lot of companies with there's a lot of investors with a lot of money who want to buy companies. They're just looking for the right things. And if you run the process well and in a professional manner, you can hope to have a very successful transaction. That's the presentation. We'll open it up to the questions, and as Hall had indicated, we'll be very happy to talk to you or answer any questions you may have on a one-to-one basis as well.
Well, thank you, Michael. We have a few questions already queued up as you were talking, and for those who have questions, feel free to go ahead and type those in. The first question is how do you set valuation? What do you use to figure that out?
So valuation is set in a number of ways. When you're looking at an M&A transaction, the one way you can look at it, and the most frequent way you look at it, is transaction comparables. What other companies that are similar to yours have gone off in a sale, and you want to look to see where those multiples went. As you know, as I believe you would know, many transactions are private transactions in that the information is not readily available. A good investment banker will actually have some of that information and can help you through that process.
And related to that is what direction are valuations going? Are they going up, down, staying same?
I would say, yeah. I mean, it depends on what period of time you're looking over. But
it depends on the sector as well. I mean,
right.
Some sectors are bouncing back stronger than others right now. So it's hard to classify that.
Right. So biotechnology, very hot right now. Information technology, very hot right now. Bricks and mortar, not as hot. So probably, I wouldn't say that the valuations are decreasing, but they're probably not increasing.
Related to that is I have a consumer packaged goods company. What are valuations doing there?
Consumer packaged goods companies, well, depending on, again, where they're moving. I mean, if they've got a good digital exposure, then those kinds of companies are being valued fairly reasonably. If you're a pure packaged goods company that doesn't participate in the digital age, well, then you're probably not going to get the same kind of valuation.
Okay. How do you find buyers?
In general, how do you find buyers? Well, I mean, often buyers are, well, firstly, our job is to constantly interface with buyers, so that's one reason or one value add that bankers provide is that we're in constant discussions with folks, the strategics and financial buyers to hear what they're looking for and to keep our eyes out on the market. So that's one thing. But then also when you start to go through a process, as Mike stated, you're really unearthing companies that make strategic sense for your client if you're on the sell side. So you're unearthing those companies, you're reaching out to them, and also the companies themselves. If you are on the sell side, will have an idea of the ecosystem that they're playing in and who would be logical targets.
Yeah, and to that, I mean, sometimes some of the more interesting buyers are not those that are directly in your space, but those who want to be in your space. Those are the guys who are willing to spend a little bit more than others, right? So if you're pure bricks and mortar, for example, and you want to get into the digital space, you may be willing to spend more to acquire that platform than somebody who's already there might be willing to acquire. So when we do our research, we like to think about outside the box acquirers. Who wants to be who you are, or who can use what you are to accomplish a higher growth opportunity.
And one of the areas that we're seeing a large bounce back in terms of M&A activity is in geographic, is driven by geographics. So if you've got a footprint on the West Coast and we're a buyer and we're currently on the East Coast, that's an immediate and quick way to pick up additional footprint. So that's just one thing that I just thought was worth mentioning was geography is really one major driver right now.
Cool. Next question is, what are the typical fees and costs for investment bankers?
Well, we'll be happy to talk to you on a one-on-one basis, but in general, most investment bankers are going to charge a relatively small monthly retainer for some period of time, say somewhere between 4 to 6 months, but most of the compensation is going to come on success. And what you want to do as a seller is to try and incentivize your investment banker to be on the same incentive path as you. For example, what we've done in the past is we'll start off with a smaller percentage to some level of purchase price, and we've increased it beyond there so that we're incented to really oversell the company and try to and obviously that puts everybody on the same path.
And there are bankers, I don't know if bankers, but more business brokers who will work under no retainer engagements. And I think what our position is that even if a small percentage is on the is from the retainer, you want to be aligned in that everyone is part of the process. And we have found that if our engagements involve a retainer, our clients are more engaged in the process. So I think it's often you get what you pay for if you're working with just a business broker who's on the complete upside engagement terms.
Okay. Next question has to do with, again, valuations. I have a mobile app company. What kind of valuations are you seeing out there, or multiples are you seeing out there for mobile apps these days?
Well, when you say, so it's a mobile app development company, I presume.
That's right, yeah.
Right. So if I mean, you could look at, everybody likes to look at Instagram right now, right, which had $1 billion valuation on no revenue. So they're really hot right now. But one thing you should think about is that whatever you've got needs to be a lot different than what anyone else has, because the market is so crowded right now. But if you've got good traction, there's some pretty good. If you've demonstrated some good traction with a mobile app business, then you should probably expect to get a good return on that.
Okay. This one's a little off topic, but maybe it's relevant. What do you think the impact of the Facebook IPO will have on the M&A market?
Well, they're going to have a lot more cash to acquire. That's one thing.
But I guess the view that maybe the question is also, okay, well, if Facebook was hopefully going to really jumpstart the IPO market, which kind of pushes everybody up the value chain there, and obviously that hasn't been viewed as a very successful transaction. So the likelihood in some respects also is that the IPO market will not be as hardy, which in turn leaves the venture capital and the PE community with one less outlet to go to, so they're less likely to invest. But I'm not sure if it does flow to M&A, but at the same time, I think it probably has more of an impact on venture capital and private equity investing.
Okay. Next question is, how common is it for principals in a creative service-based company to stick around after a sell? For example, a mobile app development or a web development company.
There's usually an earn-out period almost always, and that can run from 1.5 to 4 years. It's in a service-oriented business. It's almost always a stipulation because you are buying the talent, in essence. You're also buying the customer base, and again the geography and the revenue streams and all of that. But you know, the service business is reliant on the talent. So I would anticipate that you would be around for several years.
Okay.
So that's often why it's important to be purchased by a company that where the culture aligns with yours and you feel comfortable there.
What are typical non-compete clauses for those who sell their company?
Typical non-compete will be anywhere from 2 to 5 years, depending on the business. But I would say generally you're not going to get anything less than 2 years, and I would say most of the time what I've seen, what I've negotiated is more in the range of 3 years.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the audience? That's what's come up on the screen so far. If you guys have any more questions, by all means type them in now. As we said before, we will package up the slides and the recording and send that out to you this evening with the contact details on it in case you have any further questions or would like to dialogue individually. As people are gathering those questions up, if there are any more, Michael, Fritz, do you have any closing comments?
No, just we really want to thank everyone for spending the time with us, and hopefully we're informative for you. And again, we'd love to work together with Hall to engage with you to the extent that makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you for coming out, both you, Michael, and you, Fritz, and sharing your information with us. We appreciate it. There's a lot of interest in this area. Got several thank yous coming up from the audience. I think they really appreciate it as well. And we will look to see if there's any follow-on seminars or webinars we should be doing in this area. So if you in the audience have any particular requests or interests and like to see further information in this direction, please let me know as we can line these up for the future. I think that's it for now. So I want to thank you guys for coming on and spending your hour with us, and we'll be sending the slides later today, and we'll go from there. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Fritz, and we'll close it out at this point.
All righty.
Thank you all.